live. Welcome friends. I think I'm a little bit early today. Probably like a minute early, but my countdown clock was ahead of time too because I think I started it early. I had to run to the bathroom. So here we are, RockSim Live. Today is September 8th, 2023. Not 20, yeah, 2023. Yeah, we've got some people in the house already. Chris's Rocketry and More from Golden Valley, Arizona. Low Budget Bob from Buckeye, Arizona. We got the Arizona crowd here. Terry Wheelock, he's starting to build. And Low Budget Bob said, I emailed in a question about doing a sim for the Estus Sidekick. How do you do a sim with two sustainers? Low Budget Bob, I don't remember getting that email. Go ahead and send it again, or in the comments, kind of explain what you mean by two sustainers. Mark Sell is here from Parker, Colorado. I'm also in Colorado, so we got the west coast of the United States going here. We're missing our people from the Netherlands and our regulars, and from the East Coast. But they might be lurking. There's a lot of viewers currently, but only a few people have checked in. So thank you. This is RockSim Live, of course. My name is Tim Van Milligan, and I need a sip of water. Yeah, last week was, well, I guess earlier this week was Labor Day. And there was a lot of launches around the country. I know there was Airfest in Argonia, Kansas, and a lot of the people from Colorado went into Kansas to fly rockets. So what did you fly this weekend? Did you celebrate Labor Day with rocket launches? If you did, go ahead and tell me what you flew. We'd love to hear about it. Kevin's Models and More. Oh, we got Kevin's Models and More from Las Vegas, and Rick DeFosses from New Hampshire. I was waiting for Rick to get in here because we needed the East Coast. Yeah, so Low Budget Bob he says the Sidekick has two body tubes with spreaders holding them together. I can't remember who got back to me from Apogee. Low Budget Bob, I got one on channel. You sim it just like a 2-engine rocket. Yeah, we did a Sidekick. I don't know, it's been a while, but I may be able to find it. We can do it again. That was kind of a fun one. It's easy to do. But before I do that, let me close some things here so that things aren't popping up and down on me. Free up some memory. Let's see, what else do I need to quit? Spotify. We'll quit this. We got maps. We can quit that. Okay. Oh, we got the Netherlands in the house. Johan from the Netherlands is here. Thank you, Johan, for coming in. Yeah, so let me switch screens. Not that one, this one. There we go. So let me bring up the Apogee website. So before we get into it, let me just go over a couple of housekeeping things. We're talking about the RockSim software, and you will find it here at Apogee Components. Our web address is apogeerockets.com. If you come down here on the home page and you scroll down, you see free RockSim training every week. That is what we are doing right now. We're doing RockSim Live, and if you click on this is our archive of previous episodes. And we are on episode number 137 today. Today is September 8th, as I said. If you go to the How To and Guides menu, click on that, and then come down here to software. This is our menu for RockSim, where you can get a free trial, find out on a high level what RockSim is. You can purchase it, our features, the frequently asked questions, what you can do with it, system requirements, what kind of computer do you have, and version history. What have we changed since previous versions? And over here we have video tutorials, again, our RockSim Live training, and then some common questions that a lot of people ask. We threw some over those over here. Okay, so that's the housekeeping. So the Estus Sidekick. Let's see if we can get a picture of what it looks like. Okay, so here is what it looks like. It's two, come on, don't be doing that. It's two rockets side by side, spread out by these spacers. And can I make that image any bigger? No, that's as big as it gets. Yeah, so it's just two rockets, and they're independent. Well, they're dependent on each other because they're attached together, but you light each one with two igniters, one in each igniter. I wonder if we can find a RockSim file. So Sidekick RockSim file. This is what I always do. I always search in the search bar. It's the Sidekick, which we just were. That's the Apogee site where we just were. Okay, I don't see a Sidekick. Sometimes there is. I know I made one. Let's just kind of close that for now. And we'll just regenerate one. Oh, let me check my own hard drive here. Let's do a search on my machine. No, I do not see one. Okay, well, we'll build it. If I recall, the Estus Sidekick, let me see, do I still have that page open? Estus Sidekick. I wonder how big in diameter these tubes are. See if I can figure that out. Okay, so it uses a B42 and B64. So those are 18 millimeter motors. So my guess is these tubes are 18 millimeters in diameter, and they look pretty long, so I'm going to guess they're 18 inches long. Let's see if we can get some specs. Length 21 inches. So my guess is the tubes themselves are 18 inches long, plus a nose cone of about 3 inches. Should be around 21.1 inches long. Okay, so let's go design this in RockSim. So in your RockSim, to start a design, go ahead and click the new button up here in the top corner. Let me make my cursor bigger so you can see it. Do I want to save my changes? No. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to go to my system settings, make the cursor bigger so you can see where my cursor's moving around. Come on, system settings. There we go. Accessibility. Display. Pointer size. I'll make it like about the size of a big old fly. Okay, so we started off by hitting the new button, and we're going to design the rocket, and we're at image go. Okay, so here's the image of the rocket. I'll keep this off to the side so that we can see it. Let me move this screen, make it a little skinnier so you can see the rocket we're going to design right here. I'm going to design one of the tubes first, and then I'm going to duplicate it and put it next to the first one. And if I do it right, it should go pretty quick. So to start the design, let's give it a name. Let's decide if I can spell Sidekick. We're going to use the RockSim stability equations. It's a single stage rocket, and we're going to leave everything else alone. Then we're going to go across the tabs here. So the next one is the design components. So now we're going to start adding items to this design. So here's the sustainer. It's only a single stage, so we're going to add parts to that stage. And we're going to start with the nose cone. We're going to work from the top down. So I'm going to look in my database. So what it did is opened up the database, and it always does that first. And I'm looking for an 18 millimeter diameter tube. And 18 millimeters is about 0.78. Yeah, maybe I'm going to sort by that size. So we got a whole bunch of plastic nose cones. And I'm looking, so here's in the Estus section. I don't know what, this kind of looks like an ogive shape. I can't tell. Let me choose that one. Oh, that looks fairly close. Okay, so this is the nose cone. We can make it a little bit longer. If our tube is 18 inches and the rocket length was 21.1, so we'll make this 3.1 inches long. So we'll just stretch it out a little bit. And it's made out of polystyrene. It's going to be hollow. And it calculates the mass at 3.26 grams. So that looks good to me. We'll change the color, make it orange. So this over here is the 3D color, this column. So I'm selecting an orange. I'm trying to match that color a little bit. So I'll just make it a little darker. There you go. I like that color. And I'll do the same thing for the 2D color. I always like to change the colors of my parts in RockSim because it just makes it easier to find things. It makes it easier to view. And it's more exciting. So that was under the color tab. And that's all we're going to do for the nose cone. Next, we're going to add the body tube, this tube right here. So body tube. And when we selected the nose, it was 0.736 inches in diameter. So we're going to select something that was similar in diameter. We're going to choose an Apogee 18 millimeter and click OK. And you can see it added the tube right here, and it matches the diameter of the nose cone, which is what we want. And this is going to be a motor mount tube, so we're going to select that right here. And by doing that, you can load an engine. We'll ignore loading an engine until a little bit later. And we said 18 inches, and it already selected that because that was what is in the database, so it just picked it, if you're wondering where that came from. And then we'll just change the color. We'll make it black because this is black. We could put these decals on here if we had the artwork for them, but I don't have the artwork, so I'm going to make this one like a gray, a dark gray. Actually, that's a bad color because an unhighlighted tube is gray. I'll just make it pink. All right, so that's our body tube. That looks good. Now we're going to add the fins, and you'll notice there's only 2 fins on this rocket. And so I'm going to add the fins, and let me see if I can get a better view of this rocket, see if I can get a better shape. Okay, so if I look at that rocket, these fins are, it's kind of an odd shape. It's not a trapezoid and it's not an ellipse. So it's kind of like a rounded off trapezoid. So to make those fins, we would have to do custom fins, which is right here. We're going to add those. Again, it always looks in the database, but this time I'm going to ignore the database, so I'll just close it and make this screen here. All right, so this is the default fin that it just threw on there. Let's first, let's change the shape. So to change the shape, you go to the Plan Points tab, click on that, and you'll see a grid here with the fin on it. And if you can make it bigger or smaller, and you can zoom in and out, you can grab and drag it around. And so we're going to try to approximate that shape of this fin. So let me slide this over here. Okay, I can still see it. That's good. Okay, so I accidentally clicked on the point right here, and if I don't want what I just did, just do undo last. So it's a swept fin, so I'm looking at this here and I'm trying to match this here, and both the leading edge and the trailing edge are swept. It's telling me I didn't click in the right spot. First I want to adjust the length of this right here. That looks pretty long, so I'm going to move this point here. I'm going to move it longer, and I don't know what it should be, but I know it's too short here. And it went over the edge of the tube, and to fix that, just come up here to the General tab and change the location. It's measured, the location of this fin is 16.5 inches, so that's measured from the front of the part that owns it, and the part that owns this fin is this tube, so it's measured 16.5 inches from the front. We want it measured from the back. So I'm going to go to this and say from the base of the owning part. And so now it's measured from here, and this point is what it's measuring to. So it says it's a negative 1.25 inches. So if I make this a 0, then it's going to move that fin all the way up here to the back edge, which is pretty close to here. They got a engine retainer hanging off the back. So if you wanted to account for that, you'd probably move this up maybe a half of an inch, so you can get a screw-on retainer back here. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the Plan Points, and Plan Points, and now we're going to start adjusting these points. So I'm just clicking and dragging, and this one, I want to make this a little bit smaller, so I'm using my scroll wheel on the mouse to make it smaller, and then grab and drag. So it's getting closer, probably not there yet. It's getting better, and then it's just rounding off this edge, and to round off the edge you just add points until it looks kind of roundish, and you can add as many points as you want to, to make it more rounded. I can add a point right there. It's a little hard with my cursor being so big, so if your cursor's not as big as my big old dead fly, it'd probably be a little bit easier. So I made that rounded edge. It's not perfect, but you get the idea of how to do it, and that's the important thing. Okay, so I got the fins on there. Right now it's showing 3 fins, and my color is, I got this color here for the 2D, and in the 3D, let's make it orange like we did before. I like that. So if you look at it in 3D, you can see it's kind of getting closer. You can see there's 3 fins, and on this rocket, on this tube, there's only 2 fins, and I'm guessing they're 90 degrees apart. Let's see if I can, this view right here. So this angle between here is 90 degrees. So to make those 90 degrees, it's actually easier to change it from a 3 fin to a 4 fin, because then I know they're 90 degrees apart. So I added an extra set of fins. So at least 2 of them are 90 degrees, but we don't need these other two. So I'm going to get rid of those, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So if I like it as it is currently, I'm going to click OK. And I want to save my design just in case anything happens. I can come back to it. I'm going to call it the Estus Sidekick. Save it. And get a sip of water. Excuse me. Rick DeFossa says your current length matches the Estus sight for this rocket. My current length is right here, 21.1 inches. And so I'm guessing pretty good, right? Okay. So now this rocket is a 4-fin rocket, and I want to make it a 2-fin rocket before we duplicate it. And to do that, what you can do is come here to the fin set, highlight it, and then come down here to where it says split. And what this is going to do is it's going to split this set. It's a set of fins. It's one component right now. But when I split it, it's going to be 4 individual fins. So then we're going to see 4 individual fins right here. The split button only works on fins. Okay, so we're going to split it. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm going to say yes. And when I do, I got 4 fins. So if I look at it from the base view, there's fin number 1. You can see it's orange. Fin number 2, 3, and 4. And we don't need 3 and 4. So I'm just going to highlight number 4 and hit delete and say yes. And I'll highlight number 3 and delete it. Say yes. So now we have one of the pods that has 2 fins on it. Now, before we duplicate this rocket and put it next to each other, what I want to do is to add in this rocket. It looks like they put the launch lug right in the middle of the rocket. But I'm sure there's parachutes or streamers in here. Let's see. Okay, so here is each of the tubes has a streamer in it. So we'll add those. So we're going to click on the body tube, and we're going to add a streamer. Streamer is a component. So here's the streamer button. We'll click on that. I do not know what the size of these streamers are. Let's see if Estus website tells us. It just says streamer recovery. Open link in a new tab. I'm going to look at the instruction sheet and see if I can tell what size streamers these are. I have to zoom in. And all it tells me is the part number of that streamer. So, okay, so inside of each tube also is a rubber shock cord. So we'll have to add that in as well. Okay, so let's go back here, and let's say it's a 2-inch wide Mylar streamer. So it's 2 inches wide. Here's the width. Here's the length. I don't know. We make these 36 inches instead of 56. And I don't know where it is in the tube, and so I have to go to a side view. And right now, here's my streamer. And I want to move that streamer location back. So I'll just slide this here. And it's calculating a mass of 1.5 grams, which probably is okay. I'll click OK there. I got a streamer. Now we need to add a shock cord. If you look over here on the buttons, there is none that says shock cord. So if there's not a button, what you use is what is called a mass object. This allows us to put in the mass of that component. And again, we're going to cancel out of the database, and under the classification, there is here shock cord. So I'm going to select that, and then it brings up what is the material of the shock cord. And now I'm looking for something rubbery. So 1/8 inch flat rubber. That's the typical Estus shock cord. And we're going to change the name from mass to shock cord, so that in the parts tree it will show up as a shock cord. And we need to give it a length, let's call it like 36 inches. And the location, right now the mass is at the front of the tube, and we'll slide that back. We'll slide it below the streamer. You can see when I move that mass back that the center of gravity, this symbol right here, is also moving. And that is why we want to position it approximately where it's going to go in the tube in real life, so that our center of gravity is always in the right spot. Let's see. So we got some engine blocks that are also in here. So let's add that. So we're going to add an engine block, and there is a component called engine block. So we'll click on that. And this is an 18 millimeter tube, and the engine block is usually a 13 to 18 ring. So I'm going to select that, click OK. And you can see it put it right here at the front of the tube again, and I'm going to slide it to the rear of the rocket. And again, like we did with the fin, I'm going to change the location designation from the front of the tube to the base of the tube. And then when I move the slider bar, when I move it positive, it moves away from the base. And if I go negative, it moves it towards the base. And I want to make this, since this is going to be the engine for this rocket is a B size, and a B size engine, I know from memory, is 2.75 inches. So I want it to stick out the back of the rocket a 1/2 inch. So 2.75 minus 0.25 gives me 2.25 inches from the base of the part. When I click on it, it puts that in the right spot. So when I put an engine in here, it will line up right here. The color, I'm going to make the color of the ring green, because the ones that we sell at Apogee are green. That's why I chose green. You can make it any color you want. And I'm going to click OK. Okay, so this is for the first half of our rocket, so I'm going to save it. Next, we're going to duplicate this, and we're going to put it right next to this to create that Sidekick shape. Move this off to the side again so we can see it. All right, so we're going to duplicate this whole thing, but first, where are we going to attach the other thing? We're going to use a component here called a subassembly. A subassembly allows you to take normal parts and attach them to the outside of other parts. So we have to choose where we're going to attach it. And I think I'll attach it to the nose cone. I'm going to put a subassembly there. And it's asking me, is this new subassembly to be owned by the nose cone? And I'm going to say yes. Okay, so it created the part right here, and it also opened up an editor screen. And at this point, we're just going to ignore most everything here. This is kind of like where we're going to adjust the final position later. But we have to add the parts to it before we can make that adjustment. So I am just going to click OK for right now. And it has the subassembly, and you can see that the icon for it is a file folder. That means that we're going to stuff things inside. Okay. Okay, I did it wrong because I wanted the nose cone attached to the body tube. So if I copy this nose cone and I attach it to the subassembly, it's also going to attach another subassembly. So what I wanted to do was to do a copy paste. So I'll show you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do a copy of that part. So I right clicked on it, the nose cone, I copied it, then I'm going to go to the subassembly, I'm going to do paste. So right click and then select paste, and nothing happened. There's nothing attached. So that's why I said this is probably not going to work. So what we're going to do is delete this subassembly and we're going to add it back. Instead of adding it to the nose cone, we're going to add it to the body tube. But before I do that, let me delete it. Say yes. I'm going to do nose cone. I'm going to copy that nose cone. So copy. Then I'm going to go to the body tube, and I didn't want to do that. Go to the body tube, and here's the parts that are attached to the body tube. And we're going to add the subassembly. Say yes. And again, it opens up that screen. I'm just going to cancel for right now. And then I'm going to do a paste. Come on. I want all of you. Copy, paste. Say yes. I don't know what. Okay, see this. See, there's another subassembly here. So when I copied that body tube, it also copied everything that was attached to that body tube, which included a subassembly. So the second subassembly I don't need, so I'm going to delete it. Say yes. Okay, so the question is, where is these parts? Why aren't they showing up? And I think the reason is because they're right on top of the current parts. So I'm going to go to the subassembly, open this up, and like I said before, this is where we modify from one design to another. Pods are parts that are attached to the outside of other parts. So I'm going to delete that part, that subassembly. I'm going to say yes. So back to the beginning. Instead of choosing subassembly, I should have chose pod. My fault. I had a brain fart. I thought I was doing really well too. Okay, so copy this. I wonder if I can do it now on a nose cone. So copy the nose cone. No, I got to do it on the tube. Copy the body tube. No, before I do that, let me add the pod to the body tube. So right now it's going to add it right there, and I'm going to say that's fine. Now I want to copy this nose cone because it has a bunch of, it was custom made. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste that onto the pod. Paste. Okay, so you see where it put it. It put it the front end right at the front of the tube because our pod is attached to the front of the tube. So to change the location of that nose cone, we have to slide it forward. And I'm going to slide it. I know we made it 3.1 inches. So if I slide it exactly 3.1 inches, they should be equal to each other, which they are, which is good. And now I want to copy the body tube. and come to the pod and paste that body tube there, and it pasted a new pod there, but I don't need that pod, so I'm going to delete it. Delete. Say yes. Okay, so now we have the two tubes together, but you'll notice our fins are in the wrong location. So if we look at it from a rear view, this is what it looks like. So what we need to do is to move the whole tube over here, probably at a 45-degree angle from where it is right now, and then rotate the fins around as well. So to do that, let's go back up to the pod, edit the pod, and let's go to radial position. This got a little checkbox that says this pod can be ejected during the simulations. We're not going to allow it to be ejected, so we'll uncheck that. And then we'll go to radial position. And we said we need to move it around like around 45 degrees. So let's look at it from the base view. And we're going to slide it around. Well, it's actually going to be like 135 degrees. 135. Come on, it's -1. No, 190 and 45 is 135. Yeah, so that's right. So now we just need to move these two fins around, and that will do on the fin is instead of doing it from the pod. Okay, so we're going to go to the fins inside the pod. So I selected the fins, opened it up, and I need to find these fins. And we have to do them one at a time because they're separate from each other. It's not a set. So this first one I opened up. You can see where it is right now. And we're going to make it 180 degrees around. So I'm going to go to the radial position and then just change it to 180 degrees like that. And I'll do 180 here to be exact. And then I need to move this other fin right here over to this side. So that's fin 2 and radial position 180. Nope, 270 or -90. So now they're perpendicular to each other. Okay, and if we look at it in 3D, you can see our rocket is pretty close. The only thing is this separator here. They are separate from each other. And to do that, we need to do it at the pod location. So we're going back to the pod. We're going back to the radial position. And right now it's automatically calculating the radial distance, which is the distance they are apart from each other. And it's also doing automatically that. And so this radial distance is the distance they are from each other. So if I move the slider bar, you can see I'm separating them apart. And before it was like 0.4 or something. So I'm going to make it like about that. That looks pretty good. I like that. So click OK. And so now they are separate, as you can see, and it's looking really close to what's over here. Now they have this separator here, and there's one there, and I think there's one here at the bottom, maybe two of them, maybe just one at the bottom. To put that in, I'm going to save my design just in case. I could use a. I should have put it into the tubes themselves before I duplicated it, because it's going to be a very flat, thin ring. And so I'm going to have to do it twice here. Okay, so first one. So a ring that goes on the outside of the tube is called a sleeve. So here's my sleeve. So I'm going to add the sleeve. And it looks in the database as always, so I'm going to cancel out of that. And it's trying to calculate and automatically calculate the values. The only value that it's calculating right now is the inside diameter because it has to go on the outside of the tube. And then the outside diameter, we could just slide this. And this is a diameter. So let's try 0.8. Okay, so I'm looking to make this blue ring about half of the distance between them. So let's try 1 inch. It's probably too much. Let's try 0.9. Okay, and then the thickness of this ring, if we look at it from a side view, right now the ring is right here at the front of the tube. It's that blue line. It doesn't have any thickness yet. Let's call it 0.04 inches. So now it has some thickness. And the location, so it looks like it's more than halfway down on the tube. So I'm going to choose the location. I'm going to slide it down. I'll slide it there. I'm just eyeballing it. You can't see it, like about here on the tube. And the color is black, so I'll change it to black. And the 2D color doesn't matter. I'll just make it that color, so you can see it a little easier. And we'll call this, instead of sleeve, we'll call it spacer. And the launch lug is for this rocket is just a hole in the spacer. We won't be able to put that in there. Before we move on, we have to select a material. And I'm going to select something like polystyrene, plastic. And if I like it, I'll click OK. Okay, so you can see I got one spacer, but I need it. I need another one down here in the fins, and then another one on this side. So that should have been, we'll call this, I'm going to duplicate that, copy, and then I'm going to paste it on the tube, paste, and now you see there's two of them, but they're in the exact same place. So I'm going to open this one up and slide it down into the fins. Boy, this one design is taking me a lot longer than I thought. Click OK there. I should have changed the name. So this is the front spacer. And this one is the rear spacer. Okay, so now I need to duplicate these and put them on the other tubes as well. So like I said, I should have added these first before I duplicated the tube and put it as a pod. That would have saved me time, but I can do it from here. I'll just do a copy and then find the other tube, which was inside my pod. So it's here, and I'm going to paste it there. And you can see it did paste it right there. So there we got the front section completed. And now we'll do the same with the rear spacer. Copy it and paste it onto this tube right here. And there we go. So now we have the spacers. I should have made them a little bit bigger. I was just eyeballing it. Because if you look at it, Yeah, it's close enough. Okay, so for the launch lug, I'm not going to do anything because basically for the launch lug, they just put a hole right in the middle of it. You can see it on this rocket view right here where my cursor is. So they just put a hole in it so that you could run your launch rod through there. And that is your launch lug. So basically at this point, our rocket is done and we're ready to run simulations. So I'm going to save it and let's run the simulation. So let's do it with one motor first so you can see the difference when there's two. So you can see there's two motor pods here. I'm going to choose an engine. Let's make it a Estus B64. And the engine overhang, like we said before, we wanted at 0.5 inches. Click OK. And you can see in the screen behind me here, down here, you can see one tube has an engine, the other one does not. Let's do a simulation real quick. We have two streamers. This one streamer is in the pod side, so whatever side we made as the pod, that's where that streamer is, and this one is in the main core. So that's what that location tells us, is what tube it's located in. And this tells us it's in a pod. Okay, so flight simulation, just leave that alone. Starting state, we're launching on a 36-inch launch rod that is pointed straight up. So if I wanted to angle it, I just move this slider around or type in a value here. Let's look at the launch conditions. So our altitude is 700 feet above sea level, and we have a wind of 6 miles an hour. And let's launch it and see how high this rocket goes. Okay, so this rocket with a single B64 went 564 feet. Not too bad. But if we put in another motor, how come it's not showing my motors in there? I'm going to do load all. The easy way to do it is just to load all, and it loads that engine from that one that we selected into all the engine tubes that have 18 millimeters in diameter. That's how it knows to load that one. And now we'll do flight profile just so you can see what it looks like. I'm sure this is going to go pretty much straight up. You can see from over here, now there's two engines loaded in this second simulation. And if I push that down a little bit, you can kind of get a hint like it went about twice as high, which we expected because it's got two motors in it. And so here's the rocket sitting on the launch pad, and if I click launch, you'll see it go straight up. It did arc into the wind just ever so slightly. The pair of the streamers came out, and you can see the streamer came out while it was still moving up, so our delay was a little short. All right. And our rocket is coming down, and it's going to land, and it's not too far from the pad. It's only 115 feet away. So that's pretty good. All right, so that is the Estus Sidekick and how you create it. This is not perfect. You know, I didn't do the fins right, and I probably could have made my sleeve spacers a little bit wider. But in general, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to save that. And if you want that, you can contact us. All right, let's go to the questions and see if I've answered them. While I've been talking, you guys have been chatting amongst yourselves, and you've been really talkative. Oh, Chris says he crashed my two-stage sugar engine rocket engine. I guess he did that over the weekend. Sorry to hear that, Chris. I guess you'll have to build another one. Do it again. That's always so fun. Kevin's Models and More says, sorry about that, Chris. Johan says, my girlfriend bought a CNC laser cutter. Ooh. Woohoo! It's so cool to have such friends. I was also thinking about cutting fin slots. Yes, we use our laser for a lot of cutting. If you go to the Apogee website, there's a rocket called the TTV, and this is one of our newest ones. And if you click on this right here, I want to show you the tubes that Martin designed this rocket, and it has a lot of laser cutting, but the laser cutting of the tube is pretty exceptional. So that's what it looks like, how big it is, the launch, the recovery. Oop, let me go back here. So you can see our laser cutting. We're cutting that tube plus these holes for the rivets and the vent holes into that tube. You can see some of our laser cutting there. Get to the tube. So you can kind of see the tube over there, the nose cone. Okay, so here's the pictures of the tube. So you can see how we're cutting the tube with the laser cutter. We're cutting also the holes, slots for the fins, and I believe there might be some etching on this as well. Maybe not. Lots of laser cutting in that kit. So you can see, you know, that the white part here is one tube. The red is a coupler on the inside, and we're laser cutting that coupler as well. Whenever there's laser cutting, it kind of adds a lot of expense. See this coupler right here? How that's laser cut? Yeah, that's beautiful. It's just a brilliant design. Yeah, so you can see that. Yeah, you can just barely see the coupler behind there. Another kit that's brand new that just came out this week is called the Draco. And if you go to the home page and you just scroll down, or you type it into the search bar Draco, it'll take you to this page here. And this is our newest kit that we just released on Tuesday. And if you haven't seen this rocket yet, this is another one that Martin did. That the design is just blows me away, because there's again a lot of laser cutting, so that all the parts fit together really nice. So that's what it looks like on boost. And then what happens is the booster tube falls off, and then the top part opens up and it glides down. And here's the two parts again. And these wings slide out. In this configuration, we got this idea from a military rocket called the Ground Launch Small Diameter Bomb. And I said, oh, that's so cool. Let's see if we could try to make it. And we made it, and it worked. And then we said, oh, let's make it into a kit. And then the problem started happening. Because there's so much, it's very intricate. I'm trying to get to the parts section here so you can kind of see the parts. So I think there's 9 pieces of laser cut wood. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Plus the tubes are also laser cut. And this one again, has both etching and cutting through the tube. So Johan, if you don't want to cut all the way through, you just turn the power down on your laser, and it will just burn in a line, and we call that an etch. So that's what you can use your laser for, and that's what we use ours for all the time. The problem is it pushes the price up of the kit, because there's so much labor involved. Every part has to be loaded into the laser one at a time. So if you're wondering why the price is a little bit high, and actually this price is lower percentage-wise than some of our other kits. So eventually we're going to have to raise the price of this. So if you want to get that price, get it right now, because in the future it's going to go up. Let's see what else we got going on. Johan says, I heard another common mistake with two-stage rockets is putting the second stage engine in backwards for real. I've done that. They don't work when you try to light the upper end on fire. Christopher's Rocketry and More says, well, I haven't done that yet. That's good, yet. Johan says they had a rainy summer, but now the sun is very bright and the temperature is around 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, we've had a warm week too, but the temperature today dropped, which was really good. Terry says it's 110 degrees Fahrenheit here, so Terry must be in Texas or somewhere down south. I'm just looking at the comments here. Terry says, we like to see Tim magic. Yeah. Thank you, Terry. Low Budget Bob says, thank you very much, Tim. We are upscaling this rocket, so now we have something to build from. Yeah, so if you wanted to upscale that rocket, there's a couple ways you can do it in RockSim. The easiest way, but not the most accurate way, is to come up here to Rocket, and under the Rocket menu is Scale, and you can do it by a scale by factor. So you could say, scale it by a factor of 2. And boom, right there, I've upscaled it 2x times. So now if you look in the back end, you can see those engines aren't, they no longer nest nicely in the tube. It's no longer minimum diameter. So those tubes went from 0.736 inches to 1.4 inches. So this is still a little bit smaller than a BT60. A BT60 is 1.637. So it's in between a BT55, which is 1.21, and a BT60. But if you wanted to make it bigger, you could scale it up. So that's the easy way to scale it up. But then you still have to come back and you have to build in new engine mounts and things like that. And Johan says, yes, etching is also handy for part numbers. Yeah, we don't do that typically on tubes, but we will do it on fin sheets. So if you click on our fin sheets here, which you can't see, but right in there is etching of that part number, and there's part numbers etched there and part numbers that's etched there. All that can be done with great stuff with a laser. They're so much fun. So many cool things that you can do with a laser. And we try to do as much as we can with ours, just to make kits like this Draco that are unique and something you've never seen before. So here's how the wings swing outwards and are locked in place by these, we call them stay wings, because they make the wings stay in place. Okay, so we're getting close to 3 o'clock here. And so, why didn't this change over? There we go. Yeah. So what we talked about today was we finished with scaling a rocket. We did building the Estus Sidekick, or adding a pod onto the outside of a rocket. Yeah, those are like the main topics for today. Not a lot of little topics. You didn't have a lot of questions. Bring your questions. That's what this is for, your questions. But we showed you how to design a rocket, just the process of designing a rocket. So that was like a major theme throughout, is the process of what goes through a designer's head as you're designing things, and then how to figure out how to do that in RockSim. And that's the purpose of this training session, is how do you do it in RockSim once you have that idea in your head. Because I know, like using a sleeve or a pod to create a design isn't intuitive, and it takes a little bit of learning. Somebody has to teach you how to do it, but now that you know how to do it, now you can teach your friends. So go out and spread the word about RockSim to others. Tell them how great it is and what you can do with it. And if you like this video, you can always thumbs up and subscribe. Everybody always says that stuff in videos. It's kind of hokey if you ask me, because if it was good enough to subscribe, they'd subscribe already. We will be back next week. What date will that be? That will be Friday the 15th? Yes, Friday the 15th. We will be back with RockSim Live. My name again is Tim Van Milligan. Thank you for coming. And in 3, 2, 1, go out and launch something.